All right, so just hello everyone. My name is Dave Cagle, one of the co-organizers. My disclaimer with this is I have not used a device with Marshmallow. I actually can't even get it to emulate on my development environment right now, so I'm trying to figure that out. However, through a lot of blogs and reading, there's certainly a lot of information out there about what Marshmallow is about. So I'm highlighting a few features that I think are key to the operating system, as well as key to us as developers as it relates to some of the functionality that we may be exposed to as far as new classes within our environment. So I'll just go into a few things, particularly one of the big things that you're going to deal with in the, I imagine it's still in the manifest area, permissions. So it's just basically a similar way of dealing with permissions, however you just have a lot more flexibility in where you can change them and when you can change them. So they say they overhauled them, but I think they just basically gave us more capabilities within the permission sets. So what you can see is you can now, it's for each individual permission, accept or deny certain parts, and then also, if you are in the app and you don't have permission, you try to use one of the functions that needs the permission, it'll prompt you so you can inline deal with permission changes. And then also you can always go back and change them at a later date. So app permissions were redone. The next part I think is key is now Android and Chrome have kind of somewhat been more integrated, and the fact that we have these what they're called Chrome custom tabs, and so what it does is allows you, instead of just redirecting to the native web browser, it actually instantiates a new app session or instance of the Chrome app, and it's native to your application. So it's, and I imagine, I've never played with it, so I'm assuming it's almost like a separate thread that you control.
I think it's to replace the built-in browser.
Can we replace the other browser?
Yeah, because normally, like when you would say like I want like a web page in my app, you would get something based on like the built-in browser code, and the problem was that code would get stale and it would have security exploits in it.
Right.
But Chrome gets updated all the time, but the built-in browser never does. So the idea is that now when you have like a web page in your app, it'll use the Chrome process code to do it. So that way, right, if there's a security vulnerability, the next time they update Chrome, it's gone.
So you're getting part of your browser's component within your app.
I don't think that's all of it, though, because you used to be able to say you wanted a Chrome client. That was in the old existing stuff. So I'm wondering if this is that, plus do you get like any different decorations? Like, is it,
I don't know.
It's like a browser without all the other junk that a browser has?
What I said.
Okay.
What I've read is that it looks more.
What's that?
In Google I/O, they were saying that some of the autofill features from Chrome can now be built into your app.
And
so if you have all your usernames and passwords saved in Chrome, and let's say you only use the Facebook page in your Chrome browser, now you download the app, their login and password could be autofilled.
Right, and a great point. I mean, that's the next bullet. So.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
You guys
and I think that's the true benefit, I think, from doing, moving it to the Chrome tabs, is that it feels more native to the app versus you feel like you really jump to the browser. And so this is really just making it more within your app experience.
Well, I'm hoping they've made it where it's a separate browser, but you have more control over all the other things. So maybe you get just the window without all the. I mean, Chrome was always kind of lightweight on.
I don't know how you get that.
Chrome, what?
I think it's embeddable. Like you could have half of your app be a web page.
Right.
But I mean,
use Chrome.
But normally, if you don't specify your own web client, you will. And I'm sorry, I'm dragging this out.
No, you're fine.
If you don't, then you're just going to get dumped into the web app with all the normal web
Right. So you
stuff
want to
around it. But if you wanted to make it look more like a window in your app, then you have to use the web client. But then you got to implement all that other stuff. So I'm hoping this brings that
So am I.
more of that implementation in, so you get this sort of
like
in
a
between.
native full featured widget.
Yeah, so you get like a full web browser with all the other stuff around it, and you only add in what you need, forward, back, or whatever.
Right, or be able to hide the
Right.
toolbars and stuff just to make it full screen. So this isn't just a tiger striped marshmallow icon. This is actually fingerprints. And so this is coming to, or it is in Android Marshmallow. They are supporting fingerprints. They'll have an API to support fingerprint function. So it's now a standard within the operating system. So now we don't have these ad hoc, Motorola's got their version, everybody has their own, and so because now it's becoming a standard, and it's almost, the great thing about its competitor Apple is that, they come up with something, the next, Google comes up with something, they all basically feed off each other, and I think what I've seen in a lot of these features is, and then it's no different than what was released in Apple recently. It's this back and forth exchange of, I built this new feature, now you don't have it. Next version, they kind of build in the other features that the other guys don't have. And so I think this is almost in line with that concept, where fingerprint support is now going to be a standard, and you'll start seeing a lot more devices.
Well, presumably, if this
being
becomes
built with
part of the OS, now every device will have. Unless the manufacturer specifically disables it, every device should have it.
They'll have the ability to use it. It'll be like one of those things like in your OS build, it'll be like has fingerprint sensor.
Well, the fingerprint sensor is just a camera, right? Just like forward.
No,
They have fingerprint sensors
It's
now.
a special.
Is it a
special device?
Oh, okay.
It is a camera, but it's a special camera.
A
And I
third
think
camera.
they have the same one that Apple does now. I think.
Yeah, I've seen a button that looks like that. It's got
Yeah.
basically it's like retina scanning
Yeah.
real fast. Another cool thing is, you ever notice that whenever you have a link in your app and you try it, you click on it and it says, "What do you want me to do?" And you have options and stuff. And so now you have the ability to control that a little bit more. So when basically this open with dialog was what we were experiencing before, and you had to choose a list of compatible apps. That's gone, or basically you can control that better to say, all right, I want this link to open this kind of this application on my device. I don't know what happens if you tell it to open a link with an app you don't have on your device. My hope is that you go straight to Google Play and have the ability to download, but I'm not sure how that will work out.
Because you could always, on this one, you could always, if you gave it a good enough intent, it would open. You could always specify which, down to the package level, which one you wanted to do it. So I'm curious what they actually added on this one. I mean, I get maybe a little more awareness, which is a good thing, because I know whenever you try to do that, you end up building your own custom picker list.
Right. I think there's going to be the common ones that like Facebook links, the Twitter links. There's those that why do I need to click on this and ask me if I need to open Twitter because it's the only thing that is compatible with
Well,
Twitter.
what maybe on this one is right now when you say you get the picker and then one of the things on the bottom says use this always. That's an
Right.
OS level choice. Maybe this lets your app do that choice, and then in other words, it might pre-select that choice within that app,
Right.
as opposed to OS wide.
Well, if you currently have code in your apps now that are driving this behavior, you might want to revisit those classes and see what other options you could explore to make the user experience a little better. One of the big ones, power, and I don't know how this affects applications per se. Maybe device embedded stuff like what you're working on, Harvey, where power is a very sensitive thing. Meaning, right now, everybody's goal is to try to make battery life last longer on these devices. And so one of the things that Google's done with this version of Android is they created this new thing called Doze. And it's pretty much it runs in the background, and it recognizes when it thinks you're in standby mode. whether you're resting or laying down, or if it senses there's no activity, it starts to go in this doze mode. Now obviously that's an option you can disable if you want to. But it basically puts it in a very low power mode, but gives you some of the basic functionality, like being able to accept notifications still.
So it's like a partial wake lock.
And so maybe pulses, instead of the heartbeat checking every 2 seconds, it's now every 2 minutes. I kind of talked about that myself, but it does rely on motion detectors to implement the doze effect or processes. But this has been proven to help extend your battery life. So we're hoping that this will. And the odd thing is I was reading through a lot of blogs this last couple of weeks, and a lot of people that have Android M running on their devices are all complaining about power. And so I'm not sure exactly if this is kind of some of the new functions took up some of the power that this is going to save them, but I'm not really getting a positive sense of feedback.
Each time they tweak how the background processes, the restrictions and whatnot, it's one of the few things that causes breakages of existing apps, because now apps that count on something happening, right. Occasionally the device connecting or doing a keep alive on a back end or something, now a lot of times those things won't happen, so you'll have to do different techniques. So
well, if you do have apps that run a lot of background processing, you might want to read up on this just to see how it may impact your app, or may kill your app, or prevent it from working when you are actually wanting it to work.
I think it'd be nice if, like the app settings thing, for the permissions, I wish they would give you the ability to disable apps for their background processes.
Yeah.
Because the biggest problem I have on my phone, which has has 1 gig of RAM, it doesn't have like 2 or 3, is that every app has a background process. Like every app. If you ever go
right.
look at like all
right.
the background process, and it's like I don't ever use, like, let's say Yelp. Maybe I use it once a month, but Yelp's got a background process that's running. And yeah, it's sitting idle almost like all the time, but it's still using 100 megs of memory. Or
right,
10
and,
meg.
and from Google's perspective...
And it adds up and it adds up. And so once you have like 20, 30 apps on your phone, and half of them have background processes, half your memory is being used by these services, and the services can't be killed, so it kills your foreground apps. Like, so
right.
That's why, like, you're in Facebook on Chrome and you switch over to like Google Maps to look up where you're going, and you go back to Chrome and it's reloading Facebook from scratch. You're like, the heck, I only got 2 apps open.
Right, and this is where these apps, Google has kind of refined the requirements and best practices, and one of those is, hey, if you need like a push service and you want it to run once an hour, set an alarm and do it with an alarm, because then your app doesn't have to stick around. It will get reloaded in an hour. Like a pending intent on an alarm. So some of this is, there's a lot of what are now poorly written apps, which at the time might have been okay, but are now bucking the trend, and this kind of thing will break those. So your big apps probably no big issue, but all your little apps for single developer, but you really like that app, those might have issues.
There's just tons of them. But it's not even little apps, like the New York Times.
But you hope the bigger apps will...
The New York Times has a background process. Pandora, Spotify.
We all are familiar with running out of your battery before you leave work.
Right.
Or having chargers at your desk, which we typically didn't have beforehand for smart devices. So
hopefully this will make it nicer.
There's always this ongoing effort to increase our battery lives in all types of devices.
And now that we have watches that attach to our device all day long, there's more. There are more things to demand.
Adding more to it.
Yeah.
Better applications, cooler applications, doing more things are now consuming our battery. Actually, this last bullet point, I thought it's probably one of the cooler things, is now, they'll be supporting USB Type-C, which allows all kinds of neat things to happen. There's more power going through those cables, so we should see, or anticipate to see, quicker charging times.
Well, this is nice because everyone has proprietary cable. They all seem to use USB 3 with other connections, but they're not compatible across chargers. So, I mean, like I know my HTC high capacity charger doesn't work with the Samsung gear, the Samsung stuff. So hopefully this will help standardize that, and we'll be able to have.
Well, it's not Google's or Microsoft or Apple's standard, so that should
So hopefully
help.
this will help with that. So.
All right, improving the cut, copy, paste experience. So you guys know that when you highlight something, you got all this menu options to choose from. So now it's been simplified, and actually a lot of people are saying that it almost mimics the iOS copy paste, cut, copy, and paste functionality. So this is a screenshot of what that now looks like. So it's fairly basic. When I saw it, I was like, this is how I would have envisioned it from the beginning. So yes, a much simpler interface for cut, copy, and paste. So just some other notable features. Now, again, these aren't like important features one over another, but I thought that some of them would impact developers more than others. Now, so just a couple of cool features. Now they have an auto backup and restore for apps. They're leveraging Google Cloud. So now you can back up your phone and restore it from Google Cloud. So if you get a new phone, you can back it up and then log into your new phone and then restore its settings.
But it's also all your data too.
Yes, it includes all of your information as well. So so it's a full-fledged, when you're migrating from one phone to the other, you get the same.
Do you have any power over the encryption keys, or do you just completely rely on Google?
I don't think they talked much about how it's
There was
encrypted.
I didn't read anything about that, but I imagine if there's got to be like an encrypted backup that allow you to store your.
But I'm wondering if
keys?
you get to specify any of the keys used and stuff.
I'm
So
sure it's
not
all auto-generated.
I mean, if they don't mention it and